the key issues that we found last year around politicization of aid were recurring, were ongoing, and so it's a concern. In particular, we've seen in places like occupied Palestinian territories and Somalia, where many governments' anti-terrorism legislation is actually hindering humanitarian organizations from having access to populations affected by a crisis. And this is a serious issue. It hasn't gone away, and it requires some urgent attention by governments and policy leaders. We decided this year with the Humanitarian Response Index to look at the issue of gender, because over the last 4 or 5 years, we've consistently seen that this is an issue that is not getting enough attention by the humanitarian sector. We looked specifically at whether or not donor government had a particular role to play in promoting more gender-sensitive and gender awareness in the work of humanitarian organizations. And in fact, many donor governments talk about this in their policies, but there's a gap in practice. Donors are collectively failing in the area of investing in preparedness, prevention, capacity building, and the transition from emergency relief to longer-term recovery and development work. In our assessments of the humanitarian situation in Kenya and in Somalia, it's a good example of where donors working with their humanitarian partners could have taken much earlier action to prepare for and respond more effectively and avoid the scale and the impact of the famine in the Horn of Africa today. The efforts to reform and improve the humanitarian system are actually having some positive results. In most of the crises we've seen, there are certainly still issues and areas for improvement in areas of like coordination, the use of clusters, and in pooled funds. But over the last 4 years, we've seen steady progress and improvement in general, and I think that's a positive message. Many donors have made improvements and they've reviewed their policies. That's a really positive sign. And I guess the message for those donors that have undertaken policy reviews is to make sure that the policies link up to practice. We'd like donors to renew their commitments to the Good Humanitarian Donorship Principles and look for ways to go beyond that for practical measures to help the humanitarian sector work more efficiently, more effectively, and have a greater impact for people who are exposed to crises.